The Merkava is the Israeli army's principal main battle tank. It's been part of all of Israel's ground offensives since 1982. Now, the Merkava replaced the British-designed Centurion tank. Interestingly, the Indian Army also used the Centurion for over 4 decades. The Merkava replaced the British-designed Centurion tank. Now, interestingly, the Indian Army also used the Centurion for over 4 decades. It was called the Vijayanta. This tank was retired in the late 1990s. Now, the Merkava has been in service for over 4 decades in the Israeli military. It's gone from Mark 1 to Mark 5 in the last 4 decades. The Mark 4 tank that you see here is one of the most commonly deployed variants. Now, the tank has a crew of 4 persons and a total weight of 65 tons. To give you an idea of how much that weighs, the Arjun Mark II MBT has a weight of 68 tons. Now let's look at the Merkava's capabilities in the triangle of firepower, protection and mobility. Now the
Hello and welcome. You're watching Global Business Report here on News9 Live. I am Krishna Kumar. The financial world has been abuzz as Wall Street concluded an earnings-packed last week, which was indeed a mixed bag. Companies across sectors came out of their quarterly earnings and investors were holding their breaths in anticipation. Some companies managed to beat what analysts and the street was expecting, while many others fell short, and the stock market over the last week was left in a state of extreme anxiety. This Reuters report sets up what Wall Street's trading week was like, so that we begin this week on the right note. Take a look.
U.S. stocks lost early momentum to end mostly lower Friday as investors digested a hectic week of mixed earnings and economic data that seemed to support the higher-for-longer interest rate scenario. The Dow fell more than 1%, the S&P 500 gave back 0.5%, and the Nasdaq rose nearly 0.4%. All 3 indexes notched weekly losses. Contigo Global Head of Applied Research Melissa Brown blames it on the dour mood of investors and traders.
Good earnings news, the stocks get hammered. Bad earnings news, stocks get hammered. I think it's all a result of basically sentiment being negative. And so any news, unless it's really good, is going to tend to be punished.
The Commerce Department's hotly anticipated personal consumption expenditures report showed inflation gradually cooling down as expected, getting closer to the Federal Reserve's 2% annual target, while consumer spending, which accounts for about 70% of the U.S. economy, posted a robust upside surprise. The Fed is expected to leave interest rates unchanged at its policy meeting next week. Meanwhile, about half of the companies in the S&P 500 have reported quarterly earnings with nearly 80% topping expectations. That includes chipmaker Intel, which jumped 9% Friday. But Ford plunged 12% after it withdrew its full-year forecast due to uncertainty over the pending ratification of its deal with the United Auto Workers Union. It also warned of continued pressure on electric vehicles.
Now, it was indeed a week filled with economic data coming out, many more. What were the key figures? And what can we expect from the week of trading this week based on that data, from job growth numbers to GDP numbers? This report tells you more.
From blockbuster growth numbers in the US to how Ford struck a deal with strikers, this is the week in numbers. 4.9% was how much the US economy expanded in the third quarter, yet again defying warnings of a recession. That was the fastest growth in nearly 2 years. Wage rises driven by a tight labor market drove consumer spending higher. 25% is the pay rise for Ford factory staff, agreed as part of a deal to end a 6-week strike. Union of Auto Workers chief Shawn Fain says it's a huge win.
We told Ford to pony up, and they did. We won things nobody thought was possible.
Now, analysts bet General Motors and Chrysler parent Stellantis will strike similar deals too. $53 billion is how much Chevron is paying to buy smaller rifle Hess. It's just the latest in a series of blockbuster oil tie-ups in the US, following an even bigger acquisition by Exxon earlier in the month. 9.6% was the slide in shares for Google parent Alphabet on Wednesday. They tumbled after earnings numbers fueled concern it's losing out to Microsoft in cloud computing. The Windows maker saw income jump as its big corporate clients invest in AI features. And up to $167 billion is how much revenue Amazon expects over the coming quarter. Its predicted range for sales was largely lower than analysts had hoped, hinting that American consumers could finally be getting cautious about splashing out.
Now, it's a case of trick or treat as we come out of the Halloween weekend. Central banks across the world are preparing to make their moves in the coming weeks, and we are approaching a pivotal juncture. Markets and investors are eagerly awaiting the decisions and announcements that central banks across the world are going to take that could shape the global economic landscape. So what lies ahead for monetary policy globally, interest rates across the world, and the financial world's own version of Halloween surprises? Take a look at this.
From a slew of central bank meetings to Apple's earnings, these are the stories to watch in business and finance. The Bank of Japan makes a policy announcement on Tuesday. The benchmark 10-year government bond yield is still below the BOJ's 1% policy ceiling, partly due to lots of intervention. Overnight index swaps offer a cleaner view of where markets put 10-year yields without BOJ interference, creeping over 1% in recent days. Governor Kazuo Ueda has insisted the bank will take a patient approach to removing stimulus. Apple reports U.S. earnings on Thursday. Its shares have helped drive equity indexes higher this year, along with the other major U.S. tech and growth companies. But the stock has pulled back sharply since late July when the S&P 500 hit its 2023 high. Results already in from megacaps have prompted a mixed reaction, with shares of Alphabet and Tesla slumping after their reports. A bruised U.S. stock market will turn its attention to the Fed monetary policy meeting on Wednesday. Futures tied to the main policy rate show most traders don't expect the Fed to raise borrowing costs. However, some believe a rate increase could come when the central bank meets again in December. The Bank of England gathers on Thursday for its penultimate meeting of 2023. Throughout 2023, year-on-year growth has halved. Rates have risen to 5.25%, and while inflation is lower, it is still well above the Eurozone in the US at 6.7%. The BOE will want to ram home the message that rates won't fall anytime soon.
Now, this is a significant development at the intersection of technology and transportation. The California Department of Motor Vehicles has taken a bold step by suspending General Motors' self-driving car company called Cruise. The reason behind this move? A determination that the robo-taxis in San Francisco posed an unreasonable risk to public safety. What does it mean for the autonomous vehicle industry's future and the broader implications for the future of self-driving cars in California and beyond? This report tells you more.
California's Department of Motor Vehicles suspended GM's self-driving car company Cruise on Tuesday, ordering its robo-taxis off the road in San Francisco because they posed a, quote, unreasonable risk to public safety. That's according to a statement from the state's DMV that said Cruise had misrepresented information related to the safety of its autonomous technology. The suspension, effective immediately, is a major setback for General Motors and comes after a series of accidents involving Cruise vehicles. Cruise said the DMV reviewed an incident on October 2nd when one of its self-driving vehicles was putting on the brakes but did not avoid striking a pedestrian who had previously been struck by a hit-and-run driver. Cruz said that in that incident, a human driver, quote, tragically struck and propelled the pedestrian into the path of the autonomous vehicle, which struck the pedestrian. GM CEO Mary Barra, who has previously said Cruz represents a giant growth opportunity, said its robotaxis have better safety records than human drivers. Shares of GM ended more than 2% lower on Tuesday.
Matthew Perry, renowned for his iconic role as Chandler Bing on the most famous TV series in the world, Friends. And he has left a profound void in the hearts of his loved ones and admirers across the world alike. The passing of this beloved star marks the end of an era. As we remember the laughter and joy he brought to our screens for so many years, this report tells you how his family took the tragic news.
I love his sense of humor. I know he didn't want to be remembered as the show from Friends, but it's impossible. How could you not? He was Friends. It just feels, it's just unreal to know that he's already gone. He's such a young age.
And that's all we have time for in this edition of Global Business Report. Thank you so much for watching. This is Krishna Kumar signing off. Keep it with News 9.